So the last time I did one of these narrated videos was, never. So I'm doing one right now. And what better place to start after you hardcore Nuzlocke pretty much all of the modern base games than Emerald Kaizo. Emerald Kaizo is an infamously difficult ROM hack of Pokemon Emerald. It takes the core aspects of Emerald, except it warps the map around slightly. You do not gain any EVs from anything. Trainers have handcrafted teams that are specifically built in some way, and there's a much wider variety of encounters for you to use. I decided to Nuzlocke this game, but not just any Nuzlocke. I decided to use the hardcore Nuzlocke format, meaning no items in battle, no overleveling past the next gym leader, and I have to play on set mode. However, you'll immediately notice that Roxanne and Brawley are one level higher on the level cap. This is to increase consistency in the early game, as well as to not have to spend too much time beating Roxanne and Brawley. According to Pokemon Challenges at least. His channel is down in the description below. However, you'll also notice that I only have the gym leaders up to Watson. That's because I was 100% sure that I would not be beating this game. Just getting up to Watson is good enough in my book. The last thing I should probably mention is that I gave myself only 10 attempts to get to the checkpoint of beating Watson, and that these first 5 attempts, which is what you'll see here, I did blind. So, here's the first half of my Pokemon Emerald Kaizo hardcore Nuzlocke that I did in 10 attempts. After getting out of the truck that I was stuffed into like the absolute box of no emotion that I am, I picked my starter Trico and realized that it is one of the worst possible natures to have on a Trico. But who gives a damn, right? I mean, it's not like the game is going to randomly start a seance with Professor Birch, May, me, my sanity, the voice from the Pokedex, voices of the souls who died trying to hardcore Nuzlocke this game, my Trico, and every NPC ever. No sir, none of that here. Anyways, that obviously was not a legitimate attempt, and I had to uncorrupt my Emerald Kaizo save file by patching again. I pick my starter again and see that it is just like the game, because now things get serious. And it actually gave me a good start too, because right before the Zigzagoon killed off my Trico, it fled. It falls into one of the most we take those moments in gaming that I've ever seen, but guess what? We take those. Now that we have received Pokeballs, the Nuzlocke begins, and I decide to go catch a Pokemon in the route that I picked my starter in, and it's an Igglybuff, which I'm unsure about its viability because I see almost no one use it, but I don't know. Route 103 is up next and I get myself a Wingull. Route 102 is where I get myself a Meowth, which is one of the worst encounters I could have ever gotten, but I don't think that really matters at this point, and we'll definitely get to that later. I later decide to get my Little Root Town encounter, where I net myself a Goldeen. As I was reviewing my VOD, I had realized that I hadn't even gotten an Oldale Town encounter, but what's done is done. So Petalburg City gives me an Azurill that fortunately has the best nature, but unfortunately has its bad ability. I don't have a punchline for this whatsoever, but oh well. Route 104 is where you should always be getting your Magikarp encounter, and I did just that. As I was battling these trainers here, which they don't become optional in this game, I was beating up this Wingull when I realized that it was not in range to die to my next Psybeam, so I decided to swap it out. Ultimately, that led to Wingull pursuing the death of my beloved Goldeen that I had absolutely no attachment to. Damn, alright. Pursuit is fun to deal with, huh? In the Petalburg Woods, I grabbed myself an Oddish, but also in Petalburg Woods, I encountered Bugcatcher James, who had an advantageous position against me with my Meowth against his Paris. Turn 1, I outspeed and go for Payday, which did zilch. Paris, however, goes for Secret Power and crits me. Why do I suddenly have a bad feeling about this run? I go into my Wingull, but he reads the situation correctly and decides to use Spore. Secret Power takes out my Wingull here because it's too damn lazy to wake up. I go to Oddish and Paris decides to Spore again. After I had enough with this Paris, I swap into my Azurill to try and tank another Secret Power. He goes for Spore again. I swap into Igglybuff and she gets the status condition of going onto Twitter too much. You know, getting poisoned. I decide to sack off my Igglybuff to get a clean swap into my Trico, and out comes Nincada. He takes out my Trico here and I decide to reset. I knew that Trico was super important to the run, and losing it early means the run is over. Okay, attempt 2. We start with a much calmer Trico than before and receive the following encounters. Weedle on Route 101, Luvdisc in Little Root Town, Wingull on Route 103, Charmander in Oldale Town, Sandshrew on Route 102, Azurill again, which doesn't have any huge power, in Petalburg City, Magikarp on Route 104, and Illumise in Petalburg Woods. Okay, back to Bugcatcher James. We have a much better lead with Charmander embering his Paris and Nincada. Nincada goes for Dig and we have a flying type and that seals that. Some guy is looking for Shroomish and a guy who worships a fire Godzilla creature wants to fight me. And I happen to have a pretty damn bad lead against him. I go to my Sandshrew and correctly catch a Thunder Wave, but now I can't do any damage to him. So now I need to swap to my Charmander to actually do damage, but he gets a defense drop with Flash Cannon and crits me with Tri-Attack, leaving me at 1 HP. You know, just the norm. Coughing comes out and toxics my Sandshrew while I deal absolutely no damage to it. So Luvdisc swaps in and also falls prey to Twitter. Luckily, Coughing goes down and Houndour comes out. Theoretically, Luvdisc can deal with it, but it also is low on HP. Because I don't have a water move, I decide to swap out. Unfortunately, the dog had other plans. I got pursued it again. Oh my gosh, fuck this game. The first scary fight with Red is here, but strangely I didn't have many issues. He starts with a Curse Eevee with Quick Attack, then a Pikachu, which I know has Surf, comes out. So I swap to Trico. Pikachu goes down and out comes Charmander, so Wingull comes in and deals with it, and Bulbasaur as well. At this point the battle is done, but Red is just here. I catch myself a Seedot in Rustboro City, however, on Route 115 a Kabuto decided to peer its face in. Because I had no safe switch in, I decided to sack my Charmander since it is by far my least useful Pokemon. On Route 116 I caught a Voltorb, just the usual. I go into the gym, beat up school kid Josh and his self-destructing Geodude and his Ammonite, but his Sudowoodo gave me some issues. Bullet Seed doesn't kill it immediately, kind of because I got a little unlucky with the rolls, and he gets a low roll with his first Rock Tomb, and then a high roll on his second. This cost me the run completely, and now I have no reliable way to beat Roxanne, and thus we send Attempt 2 into its death march. Next is school kid Tammy, who leads with an Aeron that has Brick Break to dent my Kabuto. Then Yanma comes out, kills my Wingull, and yeah, the run is just over, isn't it? This next Trico feels super jolly for some reason, while I still revel in my dark and gloomy sadness as a terrible low-tier Nuzlocker. I think at this point, I'll do a lightning quick recap of what I catch. Poochyena, Poliwag, Slugma, Goldeen, Nidoran Male, Luvdisc, Cubone, and Hoothoot. We actually deal with the Magma Grunt insanely well here, but Red rears in and says absolutely nothing as he proceeds to lose everything on his end. I catch a Shroomish from my Rustboro City encounter and another Kabuto for the gym. We also get a Makuhita, which I don't know how good this thing is. However, I make a grave error leading with my Makuhita instead of my Trico, which costs me the run. After this, I decide to take a break, as playing through the early game here over and over again is really time consuming, and it wasn't until about a week later that I decided to continue with this run. Attempt 4. Trico bravely chose to be a brave nature, and even so, it still does not fix the fact that this is a shitty ass nature for it. Goldeen, Poochyena, Skitty, Charmander, and this thing. Yo guys, I forgot the name of this Pokemon. Can you guys help me? Then I get Azurill that once again decided to be a thick girl as well as a Magikarp. As I was fighting Fisherman Darien, I was at a point where none of my other Pokemon could tank a hit. So Skitty had to unfortunately sacrifice its life like the little pussycat that it is. We later get Phanpy, which would be useful in the mid game and late game, but not in the early game, which is sadly the only thing that I am playing. Once we got to the Team Magma Grunt, I once again do not prepare too well for this fight. Mostly because I didn't have the best team for it. After Gulpin uses Fire Punch while eating a wave of tiny shocks from this fucking magnet, Coughing comes out and thinks that it's time to play. By that, I mean get the toxic attitude that every teenager on Twitter receives every time they browse that cesspool of a website. Houndour comes out, and this time I make the incorrect misplay to switch out of it again, despite me outspeeding the damn dog. Seems like this game has caught on to what I wanted to do, at least get past Roxanne. Unfortunately, it had other plans. Unlike me with my hopes and dreams, Houndour pursued the death of my second beloved Goldeen that I still had absolutely no attachment towards and succeeded. Pursued it again! No! This happens every single time. No shot, dude. How do I never learn? Oh my god, dude. Oh my god. When going to Red, he had a colored face of anger as he and his Eevee cursed in my face while I attempt to be super flirty and charm him down. Too bad Eevee decides to go for rest and stay in a very advantageous state. I decide to swap to Charmander to lower his accuracy, and it actually eventually takes him out. I tried to read a Surf onto Charmander and swap to Trico, but he reads my read and goes for Thunder Wave instead. He swaps into Charmander, and I have to swap to my thick fat Azurill and tank the Will-O-Wisp coming my way. Then I had a safe switch to my Phanpy and Mudshotted it. Pika comes back out, so a swap into my Gulpin was in action. Gulpin takes out Pika in one hit, and Bulbasaur comes out to put my Gulpin to sleep. At this point, I had to swap out and beat Bulbasaur with Charmander. Then Squirtle comes out, and I had a feeling I'd wipe. I got a burn with Ember, which is huge, and then lose my Trico. Close. Alright, unlucky. Alright, that's reset. That's a reset. I said with a totally emotionless expression. Alright, attempt 5. This was my last blind attempt. I got another neutral nature Trico and then proceeded to get a Wurmple, Spearow, Goldeen, Ponyta, Sandshrew that I accidentally went for Absorbon, Azurill, and Pineco. When fighting the Team Magma Grunt again, Ponyta was doing work on the Grunt's team until he gets pursued. Okay, alright. I guess that was just like not possible to play around. We encounter Kabuto, but the one time that I didn't want Pin Missile to hit 5 times is also the one time that Pin Missile does hit 5 times. Such is life. Also a Ralts that I encountered teleported away. Lastly, Rustboro gave me another seed out, which just isn't that good. We are once again going on to a death march to Roxanne's gym, and we proceed to lose Azurill because of Water Pulse confusion, Sandshrew because of Ice Punch from Sudowoodo of all things, Beautifly to Sudowoodo's Rock Tomb, Spearow from a crit Aerial Ace, and Grovyle overlevels. This spells the end of the attempt, and so I wiped the school kid Tammy. Yep, I didn't even make it to Roxanne. This video honestly was super enjoyable to make out of any Nuzlocke video I've ever done. However, this is also the most time consuming to make because I have to actually play the game, write a script, edit it so I can fit it into all of the correct times, and time the next funny joke. If you enjoy this type of content and you look forward to the Emerald Kaizo video that I used documentation for, because reminder in case you forgot, I did these first 5 attempts blind, consider subscribing and liking this video. It shows that you guys would want more of this type of content and I would be happy to dish this out to you. With all of this said, I need to remind you that outros for a scripted video like this is not my cup of tea. So what I do instead is